I like that.
All right.
You have to have a motion for it.
Okay, well, we'll get started. Do we need to do anything here special, or are we ready to go? All right. Okay, please call the meeting to order and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please call the roll.
Director Cicada?
Yes, here.
Director Davidson?
Here.
Director Thomas?
I'm here.
Director Ratterman?
Here.
President Underhill?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, the second item on the agenda is public comment. Is there any public comment at this time? Do we have anybody online that wishes to comment? Seeing,
There is some people online.
would anybody online wish to make a public comment on something that is not agendized today? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. The following items are expected to be routine, non-controversial, to be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member may request that an item be removed for later discussion. 3A, approval of the minutes of the board meeting June 10th and June 24th. 3B, review of monthly timesheets. 3C, ratified claim summary number 580, secretarial fund. 3D, report of monthly investment transactions for June 2020. 3E, review direction of the fiscal year 2019 24th quarter investment report. 3F, UB delinquencies submitted to the tax rolls. 3G, adoption of a fiscal year 2021 district pay schedule for CalPER compliance. 3H, amendment of the CCWD high school scholarship program. 3I, authorization of the capital equipment order. 3J, consideration of renewal of contract for federal advocacy services of Mia O'Connell. Do I have a motion?
Move for approval.
I'd like to get a couple pulled, 3B, 3I, and 3J.
Okay, can we get a motion for those excluded?
I'll make a motion for 3A, 3C, 3D, 3E, F, G, and H.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion. Please call the roll.
Okay. Director Cicada?
Yes.
Director Davidson?
Yes.
Director Thomas?
Yes.
Director Ratterman?
Yes.
President Underhill?
Yes,
Okay, go ahead, Scott.
3B, Jeff, take a look at your
Did you say 3D?
3.
B is in Bravo.
B is in boy.
Okay.
Take a look at your timesheet.
Yeah, that was an error when I input.
Okay.
And so I will be taking the deduction and making next time.
Okay.
What? I didn't even look at
You
it.
got paid too much.
Oh.
Just
That doesn't happen very often.
There was leaving no name on there, and that was input error.
Oh.
Okay, and on 3I, the authorization of capital equipment order, I just want to get I have no objection to this at all, but just want to get a better understanding of what, in the resolution itself, it's page 1 of 1, there's a whereas. Just want to get an understanding of what happened on June 24th, 2020. Is that when our budget was approved? And then what's the $21,000 refer to?
The 21 million refers,
Oh,
Sorry.
21 million,
the
right.
21 million refers to what was adopted in terms of expenditures for the 2021 budget. But this is kind of a weird one because in essence, we need the board to give authority for us to go forward with making the order, but there won't actually be any expenditure of any funds in the 2021 fiscal year. We won't actually receive the equipment probably for a year, so the expenditures will occur, and you'll actually see expenditure request in the 21-22 budget.
So basically what it is, Rebecca's correct on how she explained it, but in short, what it was is staff was not comfortable making a $500,000 purchase when it wasn't included in the approved budget because we're obligating funds for next fiscal year. So we wanted board approval of the purchase now, but it won't be included in the budget until next fiscal year.
And then in your write-up, Rebecca, you had the estimated purchase price of the truck, 500,000, and then it's 100, and then we're gonna be paying, starting next year's budget, 125,000 each year for 4 years?
Just
Is that what that-
depending on, right, so that would be for 4 years, but, you know, as we get closer and we have a better idea what the interest rates are going to do in terms of doing some sort of a loan, we'll identify if 4 years makes more sense, or 5 years, or 3 years. I mean, some of the terms get better the shorter or the longer that you go, so we'll just make that evaluation, so we just kind of did in the middle and said 4.
Okay, no, and thank you. I know that that's a tough
We
one.
just didn't want to get to next year's budget approval and have the board say, we don't want to approve that item, and staff say, yeah, we already ordered it.
We already ordered it, right?
It'll be here in a few weeks, so.
So
Okay,
there's no cost to order it, but when it comes in, which won't be till next year, and that's why we're approving it now instead of next year.
There's no cost
It's an
now.
a year lead time per se,
It's,
before we get it.
it takes about a year, it took us a year to get the one that is almost here.
So you have to commit the funds when you place the order, but it takes at least a year for them to build the truck, basically.
Thank you.
I have,
You have one more?
I have another question about this particular item. Damon, you're probably best qualified to answer this, but this $500,000 truck, is it going to wear out before the California Air Resources Board says we have to take it off the road? You know, I'm nervous about spending $500,000 for a truck that's a diesel truck that we might have to surplus it in 5 years.
Yeah, so the current fleet of VACONs are 17, 18 years old.
Okay.
And so we can expect easily that being able to use them for 17, 18 years. In terms of emissions, their emissions are at tier 4, and they are so low in terms of emissions that I don't anticipate them running afoul of the Air Resources Board
Okay.
within that time frame.
All right, good, thank you.
Yep.
okay, and then I had
Dave?
one question on 3J. Certainly have no problem and no, nothing against Mia, and would love to vote for this. But on the resolution page, again, that page 1 of 1, it has Russ Thomas as president on the bottom, and I probably just did.
What's wrong with that?
I already have that corrected, Scott.
Oh, okay, not in my board packet, I wasn't, but anyway.
He's not taking over.
Yeah, don't let him do that to you, Bertha. He's kind of pushy, but.
No.
Okay, thank you, that's all I got. I'll make a motion for acceptance of those 3B, 3I, and 3J.
Second.
Go ahead.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
We got it.
Aye.
You may want public.
Says who?
Because there's a video person, right, or no? Well, I'm not right there.
Because they've been pulled, is why.
Because
Oh,
what?
okay.
Because they've been pulled is why you need to ask for public.
Okay. Call the roll.
Director Cicada?
Yes.
Director Davidson?
Yes.
Director Thomas?
Yes.
Director Radaman?
Yes.
President Underhill?
Yes,
I thought because we're doing video conferencing, every motion would have to do a roll call.
No, it's probably not a bad idea. Okay, we will move on to, where am I here? 4A, presentation of urban water management plan cycle update. Brad?
Are we sure that this is Brad?
Yes, this is me. Good afternoon, directors.
Oh, there he is.
Yes. Yes, I'm Brad Arnold, the Water Resources Program Manager. Already been here for a month and a week, so time flies, certainly. The presentation that we'll have today is an update on the Urban Water Management Plan 2020 cycle. I believe the presentation was included with the board agenda packet, but if not, it should be on both the screens here. Oh, side. Minor technical difficulty, but we'll get that resolved. I guess while Rebecca's working on that, I can just mention that the presentation, the content slide, the first one there, we'll step briefly through an update of the Urban Water Management Plan, where we were at as a district in 2015, and what we're looking at for the 2020 plan update. Oh. Okay, almost. And then we'll talk about some of the 2020 legislative changes that'll be incorporated into the new planning cycle, specifically with regards to planning and analysis and the new water supply and demand assessments, the WSDAs. That's going to be a big requirement for urban water suppliers to incorporate into this new urban water management plan. So we'll talk about what that means for us and what those requirements will look like going forward. And then number 3 will be schedule and next steps of what we're working on at the staff level to try and prepare and get ready to submit this plan by July 1st of 2021 is the deadline. And it's worth reminding that every urban water supplier that provides over 3,000 acre-feet of water annually or serves more than 3,000 urban connections is required to submit an urban plan to the Department of Water Resources every 5 years. So it's a 5-year update cycle for these plans. Look, the last one of the cycles that we had done was in 2015, and that was largely in response to legislation coming out of the Water Conservation Act, SB 7X7. And now we're looking at the 2020 urban plan cycle to deal with 2018 legislation as a result of the historic drought that occurred, as well as other programmatic efforts like Sigma and other things that have happened since the 2015 plan updates. We submitted the 2015 plan in 2016, so a year behind, and accordingly we will look to submit the 2020 urban plan update by July 1st of next year to adhere to the deadlines that DWR sets. Now these plans are all-encompassing. They include details on water supplies, usage, conservation programs, shortage contingency planning. There's a lot in these documents. And really this is an opportunity for the district to not only show the public, but the Department of Water Resources and others that we manage these types of efforts, that we have these under control and are doing a lot of forward thinking and management as a district, which I believe is very true, judging by the previous urban water management plans. There are really 2 components to drill down on for this 2020 plan update. The first one is simply taking the data from the last 2015 plan and getting it up to speed, so to speak. Getting it, following the drought, the most recent data with regards to supplies, demands, uses, and putting that into the new 2020 plan. The other one is dealing with the aforementioned legislation coming out of 2018, dealing with the water conservation guidelines, the water supply demand assessments, and other documents. Sorry, my mask keeps falling down here. I try and keep it up. Now again, the 2 biggest parts of that second component will be the water supply and demand assessments. I keep mentioning these, and I promise I'll get into what that means. But there's also the water shortage contingency plan, which is now an expansion of what was in the 2015 plan content. And all of this is provided in guidance by the Department of Water Resources in what they call a guidebook for urban water suppliers. And that guidebook for 2020 is not out yet. We're expecting it to be in fall of this year. There was supposedly going to be a draft version of it available in the summer at some point. And so we'll look forward to that, because that should lay out the cookbook, so to speak, for us to put together these plans and how DWR will review and make sure that we are adhering to that legislation package.
Brad,
Yes.
since they don't have it out on time, do you think they might put an extension on when this will be due?
It's a good question. I'm not aware of any talk of extension due to the guidebook delay or due to COVID or any other reason. I wouldn't be surprised if eventually there may be, but nothing that I've heard yet. At this point, we are moving forward as though it's still due in July 1st. And there are things we can do in preparation. I mentioned the components. Some of it's just updating the existing set so we can prep and get ready that way. Some of the major legislative changes to this 2020 cycle, we don't have to go through all of them listed here, but some of the big things are the description of reliability and forecasting every source of water supply for the district and what the uncertainty is there, trying to get a handle on what that might look like under water shortage conditions if we go back into another historic drought period. Looking at things like seismic risk assessment, energy analysis, incorporating aspects of the groundwater sustainability plan and SIGMA into this urban plan. So there's a lot of new things that are kind of coming together and need to be part of our considerations in this urban plan. With regards to water supply reliability changes, in short, there was a water shortage contingency analysis in the 2015 plan that looked at the next 20 years and 5-year snapshots and said, what do normal dry years, what do these type of water years look like? And if we were to go into a multi-year drought, you know, what would the district's response be to that? Now that was great analysis and we did do a very good job in the 2015 plan, but now DWR and the legislation is asking us to do more. They're asking us to actually adopt a sub-plan, if you will, to this, to look at water shortage contingency for, again, every source of water that we're responsible for. And, you know, I don't need to remind anyone here that we have a lot of water rights to consider with that. So we're going to need to think carefully of how we construct and put these balances in this assessment together. And again, looking at the same normal and single dry year analysis, but now also a 5-year drought risk assessment. So if we go back into another long period of drought, you know, what does it look like for us in year 5 of that drought? The assessment for the shortage contingency analysis portion, what we had done in the past was looking at the minimum available over 3 years, looking at variable management stages. We put together those different stages to sort of ramp down use and to deal with supplies and demands as we were getting into a drought period. That's going to expand into the water supply and demand assessments into 6 predefined storage levels so that the state can consistently look at the urban water suppliers and judge where they're at in terms of drought vulnerability and with their supply management. Now, the water supply and demand assessments that I've been mentioning so far, the WSDAs, the idea is to put together a formulaic water balance set up with supplies and demands sort of documented in a table and consistent format that can assist with drought water supply planning for the urban water suppliers. This will be in coordination with urban stakeholders. There's different DWR work groups that'll pull this information together. And there's different guidance that'll come out from the department on what these need to look like so that they can consistently verify where folks are at across the state. This is going to be a very formulaic process to put together a water balance for our supplies and demands so that we can assess what our risk looks like going forward. And the way DWR envisions it is annual submissions to them of these water supply and demand assessments. So now we're going from a 5-year submission of the urban plan to submitting something to them every year to adhere for this. So we need to be prepared for those requirements. This was from March of this year. DWR held a water supply and demand assessment workshop in Sacramento. Even though I wasn't with the district at that time, I was working on an urban plan for my former employer, so I happened to capture this still, and it still applies to Calaveras County here. Looking at the way DWR envisions the sort of planning and implementation side of the urban water management plan and the annual water shortage assessment reports that'll be submitted in between the plan updates. The long-term plan checkpoints of what we need to focus on for 2020 at this point is, again, summer, fall, getting that DWR guidebook out, getting that in our hands so we know exactly what needs to be done to adhere to these guidelines in this legislation package. And then as we get into early next year, looking at the water use efficiency data portal where a lot of the data from different urban suppliers comes into the state. Again, getting into this water supply demand assessment, how do we put that data together and how do we get that out to the state? And then, of course, the plans are due July 1st of 2021, and that's an adopted plan.
Brad, in July of 2020, up there's an optional submission. Is that option being exercised?
We are not at this point, and I'm not aware of many urban water suppliers who are exercising it. That was something DWR mentioned in their March meeting, I think hoping that folks would kind of jump at the opportunity to help guide them on what they'd be expecting for these water supply demand assessments. But I think with COVID and a number of different reasons, like I said, I'm not aware of many who are looking to do that. I think many of us are waiting to see what DWR asks of us in those. What is the legislation specifically? Oh.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
So yeah, but we are not a Calaveras County.
Okay, thank you.
Now the plans,
Just hold on one second. Hey, Bertha, is that you by chance?
There's two, I got rid of it.
Oh,
There you go.
You did?
really? Bertha, are you still with us?
I take, well,
That sounds like she being
All right.
aliens.
Just let us know that you're still there once in a while.
so continuing on in here, the plan schedule in the shorter term, let's call it, of how do we get this 2020 plan cycle done. We're really looking at, again, the guidelines being sort of what we're relying on to figure out what we need to submit and what do we owe DWR by July of next year. And that could be coming out at any point in the summer with the draft and in the fall with the final version. But in between there are things we can do with regards to setting up a consultant. In the 2015 plan, we used RMC to put together the urban water management plan. Yep.
This isn't something that you can do? We have to get a consultant?
I don't want to speak for GM Minkler. Perhaps there are components of it that we can do at the staff level, and certainly, like the water supply demand assessments we can do. But there are a lot of other requirements and sort of larger programmatic considerations, as we talked about, that would need to be incorporated, that perhaps a consultant who's worked on these types of plans or things before and has been up to date with the legislation could help us on.
You know, Michael made a suggestion if we're gonna have to be doing these annually, we might wanna see if we can't do it in-house and either train somebody to do that instead of doing a consultant every year unless it's not just.
And I think the water supply demand assessment is what has to get submitted annually. There'll still be the 5-year urban water management plan requirement. So that's just one component of it. I think we'll take a look and see what we can handle in-house given bandwidth, but my concern would be, it would be all that Brad works on over the next year. And we have been working on a lot of other things, so.
Yeah, that's correct, and sorry if I misspoke. Yeah, the water supply demand assessments would be annually reported, but the plan would still be every 5 years to update. So again, on here, in between the guideline release, we're getting prepared to put out and actually the RFP has already been put out. It was released on July 6th, and through August 14th at 5 p.m., we're going to be accepting proposal packages there to update our urban plan. We hope to later this year then kick off with the consultants and start to move forward on what these requirements look like and put together exactly what needs to be submitted, get ready for public review drafts early next year, and then ultimately the submission in July. And again, looking at those components that I mentioned earlier here of looking at existing data from the 2015 plan, getting that up to date, and then looking at the new legislative requirements and incorporating those elements into the plan. We've got a strategy now for where we can kind of attack both of those while we're waiting for the guidelines and while we're moving forward.
Do we have a consultant budgeted for this fiscal year?
Yes. And it's worth reminding, just again, beyond March of this year, we're looking at the Water Use Efficiency Data Portal, DWR's portal for data coming open, having a public review draft of the urban plan. During the last cycle, the plan was available in March of 2016 for a plan that was submitted, approved by the board end of June and submitted July of 2016. So we'll look to have public review drafts ready again by March in preparation for board review, adoption, things that way. And then ultimately getting it to DWR by July 1st. Again, we've done the RFP at this point, that's out, we're awaiting responses through August 14th. In the meantime, staff, myself, Michael, are reviewing the data and analysis that may be needed to go into this plan, kind of getting prepared, getting some of our info wrangled together so that we can prepare to work with the consultant and really hit the ground running. And then, of course, monitoring the DWR guidelines to make sure those come out. And like Director Cicada mentioned, kind of paying attention to see if there might be any delays or movement on the deadlines given COVID and other factors. Considerations for the board here, just a reminder is, again, completion, get this done by July 1st. That's our requirement. That's what we need to do. And we'll have to, or rather, you all have to adopt the urban plan and the water shortage contingency plan and the development of the WSDA procedures that would then go into those annual updates. And that would be in 2021 going forward. The new concepts in here, again, supply reliability, energy risk analysis, Sigma, GSA, a number of different factors and things that we're going to have to carefully consider about how we want to incorporate them, how do we want to plan for drought, different risk conditions and things going forward, and how do we want to package that together into an urban water management plan. So with that, are there any additional questions? Otherwise, that's it.
Do you have an estimated, or what have we budgeted for the consultant?
If I remember correctly, I think it was 140, either 125 or
I think
140.
it was 125.
125?
Yeah.
Bertha, did you have a question?
Well, can you hear me?
Yep.
You know? Okay. I know when you initially started this presentation, I was thinking about the great big thick package we have, the urban water management plan. Are you going to be providing any updates to the actual printed copy?
Are you referring to the 2015 plan?
Right. The
Yeah,
big one.
so this will replace that. This is the 5-year
Oh, okay.
update to that plan.
Okay.
So yes, there will be a big, thick stack of papers for you.
Oh, well, thank you. I need more paper.
Right.
Does the board have any other questions?
I just have one more comment. The board is so pleased with the presentation that we're going to name a town after him, and it's called Arnold.
Does the public have any comments?
Impressive. Only 1 month. Yeah.
One month, yeah.
Anything further from the board or staff?
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
Brad.
you, appreciate it. Move on to 4B, discussion action regarding awarding of a contract, adoption of the USDA loan resolutions for the ARM-AMI radio read meter project.
So I'll take a start at this one, but this is definitely a group effort, as you can see by the pretty exhaustive staff report that we included here. We brought this to the Finance Committee at the last Finance Committee meeting, and we brought it to the Engineering Committee, the last Engineering Committee meeting. And then in addition to the other conversations we've had about this project with the board, and we're at a point now where the USDA loan was approved a year ago, maybe. And we've been working through the process of developing the project to the point where we put the project out to bid. We received proposals, and our initial cost estimate of 5 to 6 million was what we were anticipating, and we were very pleased to see a proposal at 3.9 million or 3.975. That is a responsible bidder and a responsive bid. So I don't necessarily need to walk through the analysis that's provided in the staff report, but the short of it is staff pretty exhaustively looked at the different options, whether this was something that we could do in-house, whether we could add some staff temporarily to do this, or whether we should pursue the USDA project with putting it out to bid and hiring the contractor. And our strong recommendation is that we finance the project with the USDA loan and bring a contractor in to knock this out within the next couple of years. We're also looking at the possibility, part of the design of the project, we made some decisions to try to reduce the cost. And so seeing where it came in, there's some components of the project that we might consider, and this would come back to the board, but we might consider adding back in. The main one being for the Ebbets Pass service area, from the RFP, we excluded an AMI system, a purely radio read system. It would be a truck read, a drive-by radio read system up there. And the bidder has provided us with a bid on what it would cost, in addition to the 3.975, the additional cost that it would take to add enough antennas to actually do remote read without having to drive by the meters. The benefit for the district there obviously is this project will reduce labor costs for meter reading significantly as it is, but the more we have the fixed network in place, it just provides even more of that benefit, less time of, a staff member spending a week driving through the entire Ebbets Pass service area to do the meter reads. So that's not in the packet right now. That's something that we would bring back to the board at a future time and to evaluate and decide whether we would want to expand the scope of the project or not. What's in front of you right now is a resolution to accept the bid and award the construction contract, a resolution that is required by USDA to take on the indebtedness, and then a third resolution, or I think, Matt, if you want to chime in on this third one, we have to provide USDA with a legal services agreement that essentially says we have competent legal counsel to advise us on the requirements of implementing the project.
Did we hire a consultant to confirm that?
Yeah. We took a stab at it in-house. We'll see what the board thinks of it. They actually provide us with a form. The form is largely geared towards projects where a new entity is being created in order to carry out the project, and none of that applies to us. Really, the only part of it that applies is just us saying that, yes, our attorney knows how to review contracts and, things like that. So it's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
I think we have provided, do we have hard copies of that? Matt sent it to us this morning.
Michael,
Yes.
is there with Tykert being so much more and the other one being so less, if you compare these apples to apples, and I see, in purchasing, there's a huge difference.
Yeah.
But I'm just kind of wondering if, is that a concern, why one is so low and one is so high?
Yeah, it's a good question, and that was my first thought when I saw the bid too. The biggest difference here is Mueller and Ferguson are meter manufacturers, and Tykert is a large construction firm. And so what I think we've seen here is just the manufacturers are giving a deep discount on the actual purchase of the meters themselves. We would not be able to get that price on our own if we were to try to buy the meters and install them ourselves.
But ultimately, it's the same contract as in the RFP that they all signed, right? They didn't say, make any changes
No.
that we didn't identify.
No, that's what I mean by they were a responsive bidder, and we verified the bid meets the requirements that we put out before we bring this to the board. So they I think are just able to undercut the construction firms by giving us a discount on the purchase of the meters themselves.
Does USDA, who's going to give us this grant, do they have to approve these?
It's a loan, just so you know.
Oh.
They do, but yeah, I was going to point that out too. Important distinction.
Yeah, totally.
They have to approve. They approved the RFP before it went out, I think, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And they even said they gave me a verbal okay to take to the board for approval of the award of the contract.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything in writing yet, but I've been following up with them all late last week and early this week with all the items they have requested. So they have everything that they have requested for the award.
So these are among the items on the checklist of the letter of conditions that we got from USDA. And we're working through all of those conditions. One of them, important to note, one of the requirements previously was that we go out and get interim financing during the construction phase of the project, and Rebecca was able to get a waiver of that. So that saves us a couple $100,000 probably on the overall cost of the project. But we'll work through all the rest of the requirements. And if the board approves this approach to the project, we'll award the contract and we'll start. We've had a lot of discussions about implementation, and one of the recommendations we've received from other agencies that have done similar projects is that you start small and start with a small portion of your system to basically test everything that is going to be implemented before you go district-wide. We also have to be very conscious of the fact that we're going to be updating or working on updating our finance software, and making sure these meters integrate with that system is going to be critical. So the timing and the implementation is going to be something that we're going to be proceeding very carefully on.
Michael,
Yes,
Michael,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Bertha.
okay, since we are going to have the majority of the problems up here in Ebbets Pass because of the trees, I have many questions, and it doesn't have anything to do with the approval of the system, so I'll just hold my questions and we can talk offline, Michael, about them, because they're simple.
Yeah, that's why we were considering, or the proposal includes the truck read system up on the pass. But like I said, we got a very detailed proposal from Mueller to do a fixed system that would include the installation of a lot. It would require a lot of antennas to make it work up there, but it's doable. But that's something that we can discuss offline, and it would be something we would bring back to the board.
Right, okay, because, there is a statement in there about it will cost additional money or additional funds in order to make provisions for the trees and everything. So is that part of the bringing it up to 5 million?
Well, we would only do that with subsequent board approval. Right now, the way the proposal was written is the portions of the lower portions of the county would be the AMI fixed infrastructure systems, but the Ebbets Pass and West Point also, I believe, would be radio read meters.
We'd be doing drive-bys.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
In Ebbets Pass, we'll drive by them and they'll read automatically.
Unless we change the scope of the project. So
Unless what?
unless we change the scope of the project, that's something
But
we
we're
would
not going
bring
to do
back
that
to the
right in the
board.
beginning. That would be another board
That's
action.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cindy?
Yeah, so, you state here that you're, going to, increase the revenue approximately $70,000 annually. One of my concerns is I would not like to see any kind of a rate increase. So, choosing the option for the debt service, how are we gonna do that and not have a rate increase? And, we got finance software coming on, there's so many other things going on. With COVID and jobs and everything the way it's going, should we really be considering this debt service right now? And then the other thing is, if we move forward, what data did you use to arrive at approximately 70,000 in additional income? And then, again, if we go forward, can you do a report that says, here's where we were billing before, and now here's how much we've gained each year for a while, just to prove that we did a good thing by going with this, right? I mean, I know this 70,000, that's a revenue, I guess there would be less labor involved, so there's another way to,
Yeah, so the thing to understand is we have two issues. So basically, we have revenue bleeds for two reasons. One is because we have close to 200 meters that we know for a fact they're either not reading anything or they're reading almost nothing. And then we have aged meters that just, they're not calibrated. They just don't report out the right amount of consumption. So two issues. So I'd say the $70,000 number is a conservative number. It's probably gonna be higher. We base that looking at the total portion of our rate revenue that's specific to consumption. That's it. And so when we look at that, and then based on kind of the past projects that Mueller or other vendors have identified when they've gone through the implementation and kind of seen what the benefits were on getting a more accurate consumptive number, that's where we kind of base that 5%. We would guess ours will probably be a little bit higher than that, but we don't know.
When meters malfunction, do they always read less?
Typically, yes.
Normally,
Okay,
They basically slow down over time.
yeah,
okay, I mean, I can see that makes sense, and how could they go faster? Okay,
right. And then the other thing is, we also know, just because of the age of our meters, that we get complaints all the time that the meter is leaking, right? And how long is it leaking for? So part of the technology here is that it would identify those meters that are failing, so we could adjust those quicker. Because it would just show up that, hey, you know, there's this like consumption spike. And that would be something that not only would operations get information with regards to that, but the consumer would also have the ability. So similar, if you go to your PG&E, you know, account, you know, online, you can kind of do that comparative, like how many power you use. That technology is available with this technology. And so that's gonna also help consumers take a more active role in, if they're having a problem. And also helps the consumer get more engaged when we're looking for, water conservation.
So, with the customers being able to access this, is there gonna be some kind of a software utility program that we have to have that we pay annually on?
Yes.
And how much is that?
So that, it's called Smart Meter, but it's kind of twofold, and that would be through Tyler. And it's a software that we would use as the district, so utility would have access to it and see it from the back office side. But then it would also have that front forward for consumers. I think it's based on the number of meters that we have, but I think it's about $24,000 a year.
Okay, Director Adams?
Charles, did you want to say something?
Also, yeah, Mueller System also has some annual charges that they do for they provide some management of the fixed network system. So they monitor it to make sure they're for faults and stuff like that. So they charge about $4 a year per meter for that fee as well.
And so that's a cost in addition to the other software that we have?
That's an annual fee, yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Oh, hold on, Bertha, hold on 1 second. Scott's got the floor.
We've been focusing, I mean, at least for the last 10 years, it seems like as a district, using local vendors, local contractors, and this seems to be going way, way away from that. Are these guys from Georgia or North Carolina, or both?
I'm not sure where Mueller's from. I mean, they work all over.
Scott, just out of curiosity, I didn't bring my phone, but did you do the math to see how much they're gonna do these per meter?
Well, I'm just
It's
wondering.
like $78.
Okay, what I'm getting to is do we know these guys? Or do we have references? Has anyone else used them? Is their product good? Are there other manufacturers that are local? Who's gonna be doing the work? Are they bringing a crew out from the East Coast to do all this work, and they're gonna be here for two years? Is
So-
there,
Okay, that's the question. Who's gonna be doing the work? That's,
So I think a couple of questions, and I want Damon to chime in on this too, but our operations staff actually did a tremendous amount of due diligence on the type of meter, and looked at a bunch of different meters, got free meters in some cases from different manufacturers so that our field staff could test them out. And even before we received this low bid, Mueller was the preferred meter from our field staff for various reasons. We have also talked to other agencies that have used different types of meters, different types of implementation. And so Peter did a pretty extensive survey of several different agencies, I think 6 or 8 different agencies that have implemented similar projects to learn from their experiences. We just talked to a consultant on Friday that has done a bunch of research on the different systems that are out there and implementation. So there's been a tremendous amount of work that's gone into the selection process, and we were very pleased to see that Mueller was the low bidder. But I don't know how, I'm not sure if we know how, I would expect them to sub out the the construction, but they're probably working with a construction firm that they are familiar with, but I'm not sure how that's going to work.
Yes, so the way I understand it and all of the vendors would approach it the same way. They work with contractors that can bring in crews, multiple folks, and usually it's a crew of 2 or 3, and they just deploy 15 to 20 crews daily to replace meters. And they do this throughout the country. I believe Mueller is a North Carolina company, however, they do have a representative here in California. And the representative and that's R&B company. So there's a vendor that also sells parts and pipe and material that we work through to make Mueller meter purchases now just for incidental meter replacement. And then the actual vendor representative is in Las Vegas, and he used to be work for the city of Las Vegas's water division as their customer service / meter replacement supervisor. So he has a lot of knowledge associated with meters. And back to Michael's point, field staff went through kind of a running installation test of we reached out to, I would say, 6, maybe 7 meter manufacturers, and we got some really aggressive response from perhaps 4, Neptune, Mueller, and Census. And of all of the actual products that we worked with, the Mueller is the easiest to install, the easiest to replace, the easiest to test and check for operation, and the least cumbersome. Some of the meters are quite tall. They would result in us having to dig out every single meter box to replace. Some of them are all plastic, which creates a problem, as one can imagine, for multiple reasons. And some of them don't have their own radio frequency, and the district would actually have to sign up for additional bandwidth on a different frequency in order to be able to use that for AMI and AMR. And then some meters have to be woken up as you drive by. So not only do you drive by one time, you drive by one time to wake it up, and then the second time you hopefully catch the read. So Mueller was the most comprehensive, the easiest to work with, and the cheapest.
Okay, one last question on their bid. They have about 460,000 to almost $500,000 for lids of the boxes. Is that always necessary to replace every lid you touch, every lid on every meter box?
Well, so for radio red and then the automatic meters, they actually use an antenna, which is a flat disc that recesses into the meter lid. And currently the meter lids that we have don't have that flat disc opening. So that's why we have to replace the meter lids, so basically it's a meter and it's a quick connect antenna that sits recessed in the top of the meter. It looks just like a little flat or black or silver disc, and that's what transmits the signal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Inside of a concrete box, it wouldn't transmit very well.
You can, but then it's kind of at your discretion. It's kind of the luck of the draw. You can actually set the antenna under the meter lid itself. And a lot of districts use like a small piece of old used PVC to hold the meter antenna upright under the box. But then the manufacturers, and this is all the manufacturers, not just Mueller, they pretty much say, hey, all bets are off at that point. If you inset it into the meter lid, we'll get you a good signal and you'll be able to read it. But if it's sitting under the lid in the box, we're not going to make any guarantees.
Okay, thank you.
Bertha, did you have a comment?
A couple of questions, please. On the first page of the presentation, it said that we would be getting a faster return on investment when we're dealing with pressure monitoring. Does that mean that we can remove all the PRVs?
No, we wouldn't be able to remove PRVs, I don't think, as a result of this.
Okay. And then my other question is the fact that we're not listed, Abbott's Pass is not listed on the page 2 of the revised addendum for the AMI fixed network equipment. I know we touched on that briefly, but shouldn't we be there somewhere? You have all 3, Copper Cove, Denny Lind, and West Point.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, so that's for AMI fixed networks. And the pass is, the pass
That's
would
because of the
not have-
trees.
The pass would not have an
I
AMI.
realize that, but, there's not trees all over.
So, yeah, it's $353,000 to add that.
Right, so the pass would not have an AMI fixed network under this proposal. We've talked to the manufacturer, the contractor about adding that, and there would be additional cost in order to do that.
Right. I just want to make sure we don't run out of money before we get my meat reading up here.
No, so the meters will still be replaced up there. It's just a question of whether they're drive-by truck read meters or fixed network radio read meters.
Okay. All right.
Okay, Cindy?
Well, does Russ have anything to say?
Well, I
Anybody
do,
can.
yeah. Throughout the beginning of this explanation, it sort of creates the expectation that we have a contract that we're hopefully we'll sign it or approve it today of $3,975,000. And repeatedly, it talks about, well, but if we could get it up to $1 million, we could get or $5 million, we could get $1 million grant. And that's not the way it works. In order to get $1 million grant, you have to take the contract to $6 million. So everybody should understand that. It could, if you went to, you don't get any money unless you go over 5 million, but if you went to 5 million plus 200,000, you would get a grant that would be 16.66% of the whole contract.
So, yeah, we are very clear about that, and we've also been very clear about the fact that we're not going to try to increase the cost of the project just so we can start to receive some grant funds, because obviously we would have debt service on that additional $1 million that the district is responsible for. So we're not at all trying to drive it up just for the sake of utilizing some of those grant funds.
Yeah, and I
The only question would be if we felt like there was real value in those additional components of the project, in and of themselves, we would bring that back to the board for consideration, but it's not an effort to try to reach that threshold at all.
Okay.
One other point real quick I would add, and it just touches on Director Cicada's question too, is just, and the staff report points this out, but we have a significant deficit between our in-house resources and our capital improvement funding needs. So there is going to be financing required to implement the capital improvement plan. This is a project where we feel like it's a pretty big chunk of that. We have very favorable loan terms, and will actually bring some revenue and reduce costs for the district by implementing the project. So as far as projects go where you have to get financing, this is one I think that has a lot of features that make it, a very appealing candidate for that.
And real quickly, Rebecca, what's our proposed interest rate that we're looking at right now?
It's 2.25.
2.25.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't, it's hard not to borrow money when it's that cheap. The construction cost index goes up higher than that every
Right.
year, so.
It's basically free.
Originally, when we were having this conversation, it was 2.75. And then when she said it's 2.25, at that point, it's kind of, I'm not sure what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So, and it really comes down to the fact that we really have a gap in terms of applicable, available funding for the larger picture of our capital infrastructure. And we have more needs than we have resources for.
And I asked this, I believe, in the engineering committee, is in regards to our income to debt ratio. This is not going to harm us for any of our other projects.
So on page 8 of the staff report, I go in and cover that debt coverage ratio. So for the 2021, I mean, it does hit our, it would hit our, if we had to start making payment on it in this fiscal year, we would have a hit on our debt coverage ratio, but we're still within where we need to be. But don't forget, we also are going to be freeing up almost $1.2 million in debt service, and that's going to be for the 21-22 year. When that happens, our debt coverage ratio is almost 15%, and that's where it opens up, where we have a lot of borrowing capability really good position. This fits very nicely in where we need to go.
Can I
Sure.
come in? So I'm glad you said that, because my concerns are this debt service going forward. So that helps me there, but a couple things come to mind. I think it's a project that we perhaps need to do. Is it the right timing? I'm not certain. Based on what you just said, it sounds probably okay. But we have FERC licensing that we haven't dealt with, so if we're gonna free up $1 million, should we be saying, let's start setting that aside for FERC instead of bringing on something new? And the other concern I have is, have we done kind of a rate study for, say, the next 5 or 10 years based on some of these projects we're doing? Like, for instance, we could potentially add anywhere from, $200,000 to $400,000 in annual debt for this. So how's that gonna affect rates going forward, along with, we have new finance software, and it's all the annual fees that maybe we kind of overlook a little bit. So adding those annual fees from all these things we're doing, how is that gonna affect a need for a rate increase? I thought I heard you say something a few months back that, oh yeah, we're gonna look at some rate increases, and I just am not in favor of that right now with the uncertainty in the economy. It's like, should we do this now? Should we, I know the money's cheap, but
Yeah, the other thing you need to contemplate here is we really do have an issue with revenue losses specifically related to consumptive revenue on these meters. They are leaking, and we do have to have some accountability on conservation efforts and also what we need to report to the state. And we're just not really in a good place with the manual meters that we have, and they're just very aged. So this puts us in the right position to kind of meet those regulatory requirements. As far as the rest of it, this goes back to, my recommendation of looking at financial municipal advisory services so that we can do a really comprehensive look. Sorry, I'm suffocating.
I know.
So we can do a really comprehensive look at our overall capital improvement project and everything that we kind of have out on the horizon that we have to take care of, but we're just kind of scrambling, trying to figure out how we can afford a $13 million whatever, or how are we going to afford this. And we don't want to get to the point where we don't have a choice in the timing, and we're kind of backed into a corner. So part of that evaluation needs to happen with that, and then we'll know from that conversation, that analysis, well, is that something that we can incorporate with the resources that we have, based on the rates that we currently have? Or do we have to contemplate a rate increase? And it may be rates specific to capital infrastructure and not so much to operations. And thus far, that's kind of where it's looking like. But we need to do more analysis on that. But it's unlikely that we would get terms like this in the future.
Well, if we were going through a private institution, we'd be paying bank fees and all sorts of stuff, all sorts of, points.
Yeah. And so, like, when the interest rate dropped to 2.25, it didn't even matter at that point whether we got the grant or didn't get the grant. At that point, it's like, well, if we can do it under, and Mueller's came back at such a lower, bid, at that point, it's like almost irrelevant that we would even get the grant, because before we were kind of leveraging that grant on against the interest costs. Well, now the interest costs are so low, we wouldn't get this private lending. I don't see where we would get this interest rate anywhere else, and it's highly unlikely we would get that rate, a year from now.
Well, my concern though are rate increases. We have customers that have a difficult time right now. So how do we, it's for capital infrastructure improvement. Doesn't matter. They see it as an additional $10, $20. That is really tough. So, I respect all of you. I think you all do a great job, and I just hope that you keep that in the back of your mind.
Absolutely.
That rate study or rate increases are not the go-to all the time.
And just to clarify that, we're not currently looking at rate increases. But I think you raise a good point about the ongoing costs of new systems that we're implementing. And in all of these cases, they're being implemented to try to save, make us more efficient. make us more efficient and save costs in the long run. So we're going to look at each of these independently and make sure they are the most cost-effective, most cost-effective project. And then in a couple of years, when we get to the end of this rate schedule, I think we will do a rate study to see where we land. But we need to be, in the meantime, need to be very mindful of those ongoing costs of these technologies.
One other comment, like, I asked you about, okay, what are the annual fees for this new project and that? So maybe, you can say, okay, well, we're gonna do the new fees for this project, right, the annual fees, and maybe we're gonna take away an annual fee, and one of the ones that stick in my mind are allowing the customers to pay with credit cards, that we absorb that cost, put it back on the customer to pay it, that could save some money to offset the cost for doing this project and having those annual fees for the software. I don't know, just,
At this point, the customer still looks at it that we're charging them.
well, I understand they would, because you know why? They get all those rebates and stuff on their cards. Why does the district have to pay that? What is the annual fee for paying the cost for credit cards?
The annual, I think we're at 88,000.
Thank you. So with that being said, you know, and it doesn't work for everybody. Not everybody pays with credit cards, not everybody uses them.
Most of them.
Either way, just things to
Well,
consider.
and Cindy, I want you to think about the money we're going to be saving through our water loss, because this project over the entire, you know, however long it takes them to do it, we're going to be, especially up here, the water loss that we cannot even measure, and that's going to be, you know, moved into our revenue. So that's a big, I think it's gonna be larger than $70,000.
Okay. So is there any other comments from the boards? And I was, just out of curiosity, are we going to take each resolution independently? Should we do it that way? Because I haven't really announced, I announced 4B with the original, but there are 3 components. Should I read them?
Matt, how do you want to handle the last one? Because I don't think we have a resolution in the board packet, the legal services agreement.
So the last one, since we don't have a resolution, you could just do it as a minute, vote on it, and because I think we could do it as a minute entry. The other ones, you can, if you announce them, you could probably do them all together since they're related, but you'd have to announce them and just take comment on all of them.
Okay, I'm gonna announce 4B, awarded construction contract for the automatic meter reading AMR and advanced metering infrastructure AMI radio read meter project CIP 11096. Also authorizing and providing for the incurrence and indebtedness for the purpose of providing the cost of acquiring and installing radio read meter CIP 11096. They're 2 separate resolutions. What number resolutions would they be? 57 and 58. Can I have a motion on resolutions 57 and 58?
Move for acceptance.
I have a motion by Director Rademan, a second by Director Underhill. Is there any further discussion by the board? No. Any public comment? Is anybody out there wishing to comment on these 2 resolutions?
I'm going to make a recommendation that Bertha second that motion, because I don't think that was the verbal that she gave.
What did I say?
Bertha, would you like to second? I know, but Scott beat you to it, so would you like to second that?
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, I should just make Scott second it now.
I'll second it. It doesn't matter.
He clearly had nothing to do all week long except read that agenda. Got to get that golf course back open, man. Okay, any public comment regarding resolution 57 and 58? Seeing none, Secretary, please call the roll.
Director Cicada?
Yes.
Director Davidson?
Yes.
Director Thomas?
Yes.
Director Raderman?
Yes.
President Underhill?
Yes,
Okay, and then the last item here would be a minute entry approval of the project-specific legal services agreement.
What's the Is there any?
Dollar amount.
It's just
it's
a
it's
hourly
this
rate.
thing.
Oh,
It's just a
Did
document.
you see his hourly rate?
no.
Do we have how do we handle a minute entry? Do I need a motion?
So moved.
A motion by Director Radaman,
Second.
second by Director Thomas. Any public comment? Please call the roll.
Director Cicada?
Yes.
Director Davidson?
Yes.
Director Thomas?
Yes.
Director Radaman?
Yes.
President Underhill?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, staff, for all the hard work on that. Okay, we'll move to old business, which I see none, and then we'll go to reports. June 2020 Operations Department, Damon?
Good afternoon, President. Good afternoon, President Underhill, directors. I will be brief. I'll take questions by exception, but I wanted to provide you with a couple updates. Past board meeting, Director Thomas, you asked about, has the district looked at gas generators versus diesel generators? And I had quite a long conversation with our mechanical staff, and really what it comes down to is there's less maintenance associated with the diesel generators, and if we were to operate a generator in a state where we could turn it on and not turn it off for quite some time, gas would make sense. So due to their intermittent operations, the diesel generators are the preferred option.
Okay. Thank you.
And then just a couple highlights on the past month's operations work efforts. We've received, well, for the month of June, we received 423 USA line locates. It's just, it's a great number, a great metric to illustrate just how much is going on out there in the county right now. Particularly up on the pass, I think we get between 25 and 30 USAs coming every morning.
What's our success rate?
Actually, it's pretty darn good. We had one PG&E hit a water main. That was our miss mark. I want to say that was in
A couple months ago.
Yeah, it was January or February, and we haven't had one since.
Wow, that's good.
So feeling pretty good about it. And then a couple other highlights is next week we will receive the gap vacs that was purchased on last fiscal year's budget, and we will have a training at the La Contenta Maintenance Yard on Tuesday. So everybody's quite excited for that, and I'm anticipating a really good day and a lot more leaks to be repaired after that. We also completed the filter rehabilitation at the Hunters Water Treatment Plant, which was a great project. The filter run times we could almost triple them at this point in time. However, we don't want to just overload a brand new filter. So we are running them somewhat conservatively, but everybody's really happy with how that project came out. And then the service lateral replacement project in Kirby, Gabor, and Garner Streets in Rancho Calaveras is through the punch list phase of the project now. So all the heavy lifting has been done, and everybody's quite pleased with the status of the service lines in that area as well. So with that, I would take any additional questions by exception. Yes.
I just got a question. Great report. I love that you do this, and it's so detailed. A lot of information in there. Thank you for that. Just a specific question about Rancho Calaveras.
Okay.
There's a fire hydrant on Sparrow Street
Okay.
that someone is using to fill up a large tank that they tow around with a truck earlier this month a couple times. And just wondering if that's something usual. Is there construction going on in that area? Is it authorized?
So
It's a truck with no, it's a customer that contacted me. It's a truck with no signs on it, pulling a trailer slash.
So generally, if that's the case and they are on what the district calls the Lancha Plana plan, meaning they're able to pull potable water from our area to use at home, we would request that they pull that at the Jenny Lynn Water Treatment Plant.
Well, yeah.
And alternatively, if it's a construction project and they have issued a request for a fire hydrant meter for a project, one would expect that there would be a water truck or some sort of contractor's insignia information or label near that fire hydrant meter to indicate that there was a project going on. So anytime there's a situation like that, we would love to be made aware, so we can go out and actually make contact with this person. And
Are they using a meter?
I
I mean, it's
have
pretty
no-
simple to see. They're big, they're
I
big
have no
ones.
idea. I mean, I didn't follow up with any detailed questions for the customer. I thought I'd ask any questions
Well, so
here.
often what we do find is we find folks that may be perceived, just by simply looking at the truck and trailer that they have as on the plan, but they're pulling from a section of a neighborhood, and they're actually not just pulling off a hydrant, and they don't necessarily have a meter.
Well,
So-
there is a fire hydrant on Sperrick Street in Rancho Calaveras. There's a fire hydrant there that this truck is using, so I don't know if we put the meter on or if he's got his own meter.
If
or
there is
he
a meter
takes it
there,
on and off.
yeah, generally what happens is, the way it works is the contractor, whomever, would call in a request, and that would go to finance, and then finance would issue a work order to field staff. Field staff will pull a hydrant meter off the shelf, set it at the requested site. They might actually have some feedback. They might say, we don't like the way the pressure is in that site. We were gonna set it here. And there's a little bit of back and forth.
Could we
that
follow
goes on.
up? Could
Yeah,
someone
absolutely.
follow up on
Absolutely
that?
will
It
do.
was around July 10th.
Okay.
That, a couple days in a row. And I don't know if it's occurred since then. I haven't been back in touch with the customer.
Okay, no
All right,
problem.
thank you. That's all I got.
All right. Any additional
Any
questions?
other from the board? Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Damon.
Thank you.
On that subject though, we have identified that we do get calls where they are not a customer, and it is water theft. We don't have a very robust tampering policy. And so, I am working with the district attorney's office to kind of beef up that tampering policy and then also add business and professions code. Because right now, I think, like, if we can catch you, we can, turn you into the county, and if it gets prosecuted, like, you might have to pay like $100 fine or something. Under business professions code, it actually is $2,500 per day. So it's much more,
Bigger hammer.
weighty. And so there potentially is a better deterrent in that language. So I have been in contact with the DA. She's working on, I found something through El Dorado County that their district attorney worked with them on. So I sent it to her. She's gonna review it and kind of make some modifications to it, and then we will bring that policy back to the board to add business and professions code and also inclusion of the district attorney's message as well.
All right, great.
Good, thank you.
Okay, general manager's report.
Okay, I've got a handful of things here, but I'll try to run through them pretty quick. And just following up on the operations report, I think the board hasn't had an update in a while, and I think it's worth mentioning the progress that the distribution crew and Jenny Lynn has made. And if you recall, last year, Damon had implemented a weekend work effort to bring in significantly more resources to try to get a handle on the leaks, and we were seeing 50, 60 leaks a month. In-process leaks, and they're down to, we talked to the distribution lead down there this week, and I think they have 6 or 7. And they're somewhere between 5 and 10 in-process leaks per week at this point, and they've just done a remarkable job of getting a handle on that situation. It was part of the reorganization that we did to add some resources down there. And I think it just took some dedicated attention to that issue, and the crew has really responded and made a tremendous amount of progress down there. So it's something that I think we haven't provided an update in a while. I want to make sure that the board is aware of the progress that we've made down there.
No, I'm not hearing from very many Rancho Calaveras residents about leaks anymore. I don't know if
You shouldn't hear from me, though.
I'm hearing about theft now.
Obviously the goal is 0, but they're getting pretty close to it, and they're doing a fantastic job. And I think Damon, was it your grade 5 treatment plant certification?
Yes.
That you recently got?
Yeah.
So just
Wow,
want to recognize
congratulations.
Damon for that, which is not very many in the industry get to that level. And it requires
Isn't that like the lab and all that kind of stuff?
requires in-person oral interviews, and
Like
it's
a doctorate of operations.
it's essentially yes. He's making us he makes us call him Dr. Wyckoff in the office now. It's very awkward.
All right, not the one.
Okay, can we continue with the general manager report?
Yes, sorry. Other staffing issues, I am very excited to report, we have hired, agreed with a new external affairs manager. I'm not yet at liberty to say his name because he's still working out his details with his current employer, but he's got a lot of experience in the water industry doing exactly the things that we need him to do here. And he's not local, but he has local ties. He's been coming up here visiting family his whole life. He's very excited to relocate up here. He'll be starting August 10th, and I think he's going to be a great addition to the team. So,
That was great. Good job.
an update on the termination of service item that came before the board at the last board meeting. We had initially agendized an item to bring that policy back, but after a lot of deliberation and working through those applications, decided that we had enough direction from the board after the last meeting to go ahead and process the applications that we have, and if we run into problems down the road and need to do some cleanup to the language in the policy, we can consider bringing it back. But at this point, we're moving forward with all of those applications and been in contact with each of those applicants. So,
What would be associated to that?
it will be, we've come up with a standardized operation fee for the meter. If it's a meter removal, it's a 171,
172,
172.
and then the recording fee is $18. And, yeah.
And before it was like 2,500?
Well, it depended on each instance of terminating the service at the main versus.
And you're not going to be taking another lateral, just going to remove a meter?
So we'll cap it at the meter box instead of terminating at the main.
And have any of those been resolved, or how many have?
We're close.
I think
I don't think any of
it's
the forms have been recorded yet, but we're
None of the
close on a
forms have
few
been
of them.
reported, so everybody has been, 5 property owners have been contacted. We've sent them, everything that they need. We've sent them what they need to do on their end to get it back to us. So they're all actively working on it. I would guess we're probably gonna start getting documents back next week.
Have they made any complaint about the new cost?
No,
I wouldn't.
they're perfectly happy.
Perfectly happy.
Okay, let's continue with the general
I'm not sure
manager.
that's the same term
They
I
said
would use.
thank you, so.
I think we had a groundwater, our GSA met on Friday. Director Thomas was there, along with Supervisor Mills. Brad's introduction to our GSA, Walt Ward from Stanislaus County, and Dave Cameron was on there also. And I think it was just a fantastic meeting that had been overdue. Oh,
Plus
sorry, Director Thomas. Go ahead.
Two members of the county staff.
Oh, that's right. Yes, that was very important to get county staff engaged in the process. Al Alt was participated along with Lisa Medina, who's the interim director of the Environmental Health Department. Very productive meeting. Brad did a fantastic presentation of mapping out the Sigma requirements and the status of where we're at right now, and the work that we need to do going forward. And I think Brad and Walt working together was just a fantastic combination, and I was really pleased at the outcome of that meeting. And those are now going to be regularly scheduled monthly meetings, and we have a lot of work to do for the GSA. So I'm sure the board will be hearing more about that soon. We also had a very productive meeting with the new management at Utica Water and Power Authority yesterday. Covered a wide range of topics, from a slurry line agreement, a wheeling agreement, a water supply agreement, FERC relicensing, long-term planning issues, and I think we covered a lot of ground, made a lot of progress. Brad's brought a new perspective and some new energy to that process. I expect us to make a lot of progress before the end of this year, and hopefully have some agreements in place, things that we've been struggling with for years. I hope we can bring them to a head this year and get some agreements hammered out. So I'm optimistic on that front as well. We will be kicking off our strategic planning process here in probably sometime mid-August, I would say would be the soonest. And I'm really looking forward to that. We have had just a tremendous amount of transition, especially among the management team. I think you've heard me say before, of the 8 managers that we have, 5 of us have less than 2 years at CCWD, and a couple of those less than a few months. So just with that amount of transition, I think we're overdue for a strategic plan anyways, but that makes it an even more the appropriate time to launch that process, and I think it's going to be really productive. So more to follow on that. I participated in the interview panel for Amador Water Agency General Manager position. There were 5 candidates. They couldn't go wrong. All 5 of them were very strong, in my opinion, but we haven't had an announcement yet, so I would expect, hopefully, though, they'll make that announcement before too long. White Pines Lake, we've been hearing some complaints about the crowds, and we went back and confirmed with the county and with the current guidance from California Department of Public Health that, where we're at right now is fine. The lake is open. We're encouraging people to practice social distancing and follow the state guidelines. We still have a cleaning service addressing the bathrooms, and we're, I think, doing what we need to be doing, but we're gonna try to continue to remind people to be safe and responsible about it. So just a heads up in case you hear complaints about that. And just real quickly on construction projects, as Damon said, there's a lot going on in the county right now, not just us, but especially that Highway 4 corridor. There's construction all over the place. But our Reach 1 project is right on track, making very good progress. Techite is also well underway and on track. The Jenny Lind service replacement project is done. As Damon mentioned, the Hunter's filter rehab's done. We have had a tremendous amount of activity this summer, and thanks to Damon and Charles and their staff, it's all on track and going really well. So, I think that's it for me.
All right. Is it appropriate to say anything about the design problems that you had in Copper Cove?
That will be addressed later.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Not at this time.
Okay, we'll move on to board reports, information. Director Rademan, you seem like you came prepared today.
Why, thank you.
Can we take a break before we do this?
Really?
No.
I'm going to be brief. I'm going to be quick.
You are.
Thank you for that.
Last week, they opened up the filing for, I filed for my office last week to run in November. There's a four-week period here to file. Legal affairs, we got a legal affairs, is that on August 4th? Is that still set? Okay, and then the last thing I have, there's the Aqua JPIA meeting associated with the Aqua meeting will be on Monday. So it'll be a virtual meeting that I'll be attending. And Michael, have you heard anything? There's usually voting going on that. Have you heard anything from JPIA on their meeting?
No, I haven't.
Okay. I'll go directly with them. I'm our voting representative, so I'll just touch base with them. That's all I got.
Director Thomas.
The only thing that I have to report is just a reminder that I will be attending the Aqua literal summer meeting. By the way, the cocktail party starts at 5.
Okay, I'll be attending that as well.
Yeah, that's
Virtually.
Virtually. That's the 29th and 30th, and they've got some interesting speakers lined up, so you ought to attend. Go ahead.
Director Cicada.
There was no finance meeting for July, and no IRWM meeting as well for July. And I was on vacation from June 26th through July 12th, so that worked out quite well for me. That's it.
Okay, I have nothing to report. President Underhill.
Oh, yes. I'm sure that all of you looked at the the bid for the water meters, and there was a provision that said, or there's a statement that says the bidder agrees that 50% of all work will be furnished and installed within the first 365 calendar days. So that was interesting. I just hope we don't have a hard winter up here, but we'll see how that goes. The Techite project is barreling along, and it's almost to Scott Ratterman's parents' house at this time.
Conflict.
They're real appreciative of all that work.
Go ahead, Bertha.
And then, other than that, it's quiet up on the hill still.
All right.
You haven't moved yet?
Okay, we will adjourn into closed session, conference with legal counsel, potential litigation, government code 54956.9. Is there any public comment on closed session? Okay, we will take a recess and we will reconvene in closed session.
Are we staying here or going somewhere else? Michael, do we stay here or go somewhere else?
We can stay here, we'll use that.